I would now like to welcome our next speaker to the floor, Artem Elmuratov, co-founder and business development director of the Genetic Center Genetech. He's also a researcher at the Institute of Biomedicine Chemistry, and he's also a member of the advisory board for the School of New Economy, MACS, in addition to being a curator of the lecture cycle Genetics in the Orator Club. Artem's here with us today to speak on the topic of genetics and personalized nutrition. Pleasure to have you today, Artem. The floor is yours.
Yeah. Hello. Thank you very much for introduction, and thank everybody. I'll be happy to talk today about genetic and personalized nutrition. I have only 15 minutes, I assume, so I will be very brief because this topic of personalized nutrition and genetics is very wide, but I'll go just with the basics and just a few examples to mention what's going on right now in the field. First of all, it was mentioned that I'm founder of Genetech and a researcher in Institute of Biomedical Chemistry in Moscow. In a few words, I'll want to tell what our company is doing. Genetech is a leading genetic testing company in Russia. We have our own laboratory. We provide direct-to-consumer genetic tests. We do some medical diagnostics, test COVID-19 testing, and also we do projects for several institutions and companies. For some food companies as well, Russian Pepsi and Danone, Russian branches of Pepsi and Danone, our clients. Also a few institutes that are doing some research in nutrition and food. I also works with us on different topics. Almost everybody knows that there is very basic rules how to eat healthy food. We have Harvard healthy eating plate that can give you very good and correct guidelines what you should do when you choose your food for today, when you choose your dinner or breakfast and so on. And if it was enough, then no personalization is needed. But of course, it's a basic rules. You should follow them mostly, but there are some details that you should consider to choose the real healthy eating plate for you. So what I believe that people are different, and there are a lot of projects going around the world to understand the genetic differences of different people. That's a picture from all of us genetic program in US, and everybody knows that, of course, we are humans. We are 99% similar for our DNA, but anyway, we're still different, and there is no one solution for everybody. You cannot give a specific meal to everybody and expect that they will be happy, that they would be healthy, and so on. Of course, there is some personalization. If you fly over, when you have a distant flight, of course you can choose some specific meals, but mostly they're based on some ethical issues. They can put out some ingredient that you cannot digest well. But of course, real healthy plate, real personalized nutrition plate should consider much more information. And this information is not just information from biology. It can be information about your habits. It can be information about some ethical issues, about your activity and so on. But I believe we should consider, and now we have a technologies to consider, information about your microbiome, about information about your metabolomics, and so on, and of course about your genetics, because it's a very basic of what we are about every human. Very briefly, let me remind you that human genome, DNA, consists of very long sequence of 4 typical chemical elements of 4 typical chemicals. It's ACGT nucleotides that go in one after another, and just like with letters in a textbook and a cooking book, you can write a huge text that will tell what meals you should proceed with this cooking book. The same is with your genome. We have in every cell of our body, we have a very long sequence of these letters, and depending on which text they produce, we produce different proteins. And proteins can do a lot for our health, for our body, and for our nutrition as well. The big problem about human genome is it's very long. It's more than 3 billion letters. Even you can multiply it by 2 because we have 2 copies of every chromosome. But anyway, even 3 billion letters is a very huge text. It's like a whole library that you should read for every person. And for a long time, it was not, these technologies of human genome reading were not available. Only 20 years ago, a lot of people together, a lot of scientists sequenced the first human genome. And it was a big, great project, and it was a big success for researchers. It took more than 10 years. It took more than $3 billion to sequence the first genome. But after it, there came such a genetic revolution that human genome were much more faster and cheaper to read every year, and the technology of genome sequencing they spread faster and it developed faster even than IT technologies and the computer technologies that mentioned like Moore's law here. And together with more available technologies of sequencing and genotyping, new industry came out. It's industry of direct-to-consume genetic testing. And it was I think like 10 years ago, it was not so popular nowhere in the world. Even in US, I think it was more popular among some very small percentage of early adopters of this technology. But right now, there are tens of millions of people in US who are genotyped, who have their genetic tests. There are a lot of people around the world who do their genetic testing and who get their information about their genome. And I think it's very important to know that information to adopt it for your nutrition, to personalize your nutrition. There are some very radical examples of why it is important. Maybe a lot of listeners have read the great book from Daniel Case, Flowers for Algernon. And the main character there, he had a problem with his intellect, and there was such a big problem that he was hardly, he had differences with his work and his place in society, but because it was only because he had a mutation that connected with phenylketonuria, that's a genetic condition. If parents don't know that the child has phenylketonuria, then if the child eats just usual food, his intellect is going down, and it can lead to big problems for such a kid. But if you know that from the birth, if you know that a person, a child, have phenylketonuria, you just change nutrition. It's there is a special nutrition when they take out phenylalanine, and you can grow a healthy child. And it's just because only one mutation in a whole gene. If not so radical examples that can influence a lot of people in the world, and I think lactose intolerance in some countries it's a problem for most of adult people. In Russia, there is almost half of the adult people have some sort of lactose intolerance. Me as an example, and it's only one letter in your genome that can lead you to be lactose intolerant. There is a similar example with coffee. Caffeine metabolism can depend on genetic markers in your DNA. So that's an example. What we did in Russia. We tried to not just tell information to our clients that they have this lactose intolerance or they have some predispositions that they should drink less caffeine, but we stepped further. We have a biggest branch of premium retail called Azbuka Vkusa, and we partnered with them. So when we tell the person that he or she has lactose intolerance, we do not leave them with that information. We provide them with specific products that can be lactose-free, and we give them links and motivate them to start eating that lactose-free products for them to feel more comfortable and to be more healthy. I think a big problem that can attract a lot, that can be important for a lot of people is body mass index, and how do you can lose your weight, and there is as well some mutations that can lead that if you have specific mutations that you can weigh more on a diet with high saturated fat, for example. And but the next step of genetics, I just will briefly tell where genetic is trending. Is genetic is trending from going from where you just have one mutation and one genetic variant, and you have specific phenotype. It's going to the situation when you have a lot of genetic variants across the genome. You study them and you try to understand for one person how they can lead to some specific phenotypes, including the ones that connected with your health, with your nutrition, or your body mass index. For example, just very fresh article that we did with our collaborators from Denmark. We together we made a model when you study almost 1,000 genetic variants across the genome of one person, and you build a model of score how this person can be, which body mass index can this person have depending on their genetics. Of course, genetics can influence not only what you should eat, it can influence on what you want to eat. For example, there is a mutation in one of the genes. If the person have two specific copies with one genotype in one of genes, it is shown in studies that with this genotype, you do not like the taste of pork and of bacon, for example, and it's it can influence how you taste the specific meat. And there are also a lot of other examples that genetic can influence how you taste food, how you smell it, and of course, it can influence your nutrition habits. I think I have like 1 or 2 minutes. I'll try to be very brief. Genetics is not about DNA of you. It's also about DNA of microbiomes that you live with. And it's a very trending thing in nutrition. You can study microbiome, billions of different bacteria that live in your body, specifically in your gut. And depending on what microbes live in your body, you can correct your nutrition plan and your ratio. There are several startups. One of them is Viome. It's a great company that do such tests for customers. Also, as an example, I want to mention that not every genetic test works good or do very useful suggestions, but they can be fun. Yeah, there was a very fun company called Viome. They tried to choose the best wine depending on your genotype. It was a good idea, but I think they did not succeed well in telling your in their business. So, and of course, there are a lot of companies, a lot of startups that do personalized nutrition. There are several maps when they try to collect best players in that field. And mostly startups are focusing, I believe, focus on genetic, microbiome, and some biomarkers to do personalized nutrition. But also, of course, there is in personalized nutrition, I believe there should be startups in IT, startups that do good information about products, about your preferences, not only biological, but any other. And what I want to finish with is, of course, it's not only about genetics. Our body is very difficult, and you should consider a lot of information about your health. It should be genetics, it should be microbiome, gene expression, and so on and so on. And if you will consider it together with your medical doctor, I think that will be very good for your health and mostly for disease prevention. And at the end, it will help you to live a longer and active life for a lot of years. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Artem. Very insightful stuff. And, I have a personal interest in, personalized health, nutrition, etc. Through aging analytics agencies. So it was of much personal interest to me as well. Thank you.